Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the Corporate and Policy Committee meeting. Firstly, I'll call for apologies. I've got apologies from Gaynor Finch and Councillor Barron, I think. Has he put an apology in? Yes.
Yes, he is.
And sorry, Madam Chair, Councillor Cathwood has also.
Councillor McCosty.
Councillor Cathwood and Councillor McCosty. So can I ask someone to move the apologies be accepted? Cadogan, Councillor Kennedy. Declaration of interest. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Declaration of interest. Any urgent business? Any public forum? Okay, so we'll move on to item 1, the Air Place Torrey Mouth Community Plan projects, and I'll ask Mike to come and speak to this one, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to take the item as read. Just a couple of things, though, to note. So there's a couple of typos on the recommendations. Should be Corporate and Policy Committee rather than Council. Both those recommendations. Apologies. So obviously this is the project sheet stage of the Our Place plan development. Assuming that these are adopted or as amended, then the final stage would be to bring you the finalised community plan for Torrey Mouth, which we're aiming to do in June before the end of the financial year. So, but happy to take any questions apart from that.
Any questions from Mike, please? Cadogan.
It's not a question, but I just want to thank Mike and the team for it. I found it a real enjoyable time going over to Torrey Mouth, and I think the report there articulates what we experienced when we went to the meeting. So looking forward to continuing with the Our Place Torrey Mouth. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Volver.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Just would it be possible to have a sort of draft document just taped to the we're having a meeting the second Monday in May, just draft document just to present to them. I know.
So that's to the Amenities Society. Yeah, as long as, we've started drafting it up already, so it won't take long. We could certainly have a draft ready, but assuming that councillors were happy to do that, and obviously we would note at the meeting that it was draft to be adopted, etc. So you take direction on that. Yes, but the answer is we could do that.
No, that was
I mean, to be honest, I guess what's in here is probably actually be more interested in that, I guess, because it actually provides a little bit more detail than what will be in the final plan. So, I mean, that could be tabled once it's approved.
So can I probably ask a question? Because this draft won't be complete till June, will the financial implications of this not be included in the first year of the long-term plan?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I'm at this point, what I'm planning is to make a staff submission to the LTP asking for some funding so that these projects can get underway, and then, so that might include development of finalising the scope, etc. So further work, maybe some investigations might be required. And then depending on what happens in 24-25, may request some additional funding to get some of those projects on the road.
Through the annual plan?
Through the annual plan, yes.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Any further questions for Mike? We've got 2 recommendations there. Is somebody prepared to move those recommendations? Councillor Graham. Second, and Councillor Volwela. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Motion's carried. Thanks, Mike. Page 16. Through the Development Quarterly Report. Linda, please.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity once again to report back on a quarterly report for the period covering January through to March. While I'll take the report as read, I'll just highlight a couple of areas in particular. We continue to do some work with communities around the land and house package, and we've also currently working with the property group to relook at some housing solutions given the changing landscape across their communities, and looking at the type of housing that may be required going forward. So a few years ago, 6 years ago, we did some work specifically around worker accommodation. And this is going a little bit wider than that and looking at the type of houses required to build our communities going forward, especially when we looked at the Clutha District Council projections of population and growth, and especially around some of those numbers of residential properties that will be required into the future. So we'll be engaging with a number of stakeholders across the district, and potentially looking at, you know, what does a property investor need, or what would be financially viable for to get some investment into providing other private-public partnerships in response to respond to our housing issues at the moment as well. We continue to undertake the attraction and retention program, and we're now moving into doing some more videos of and to include businesses and employees to market across, mainly through our digital social media channels as well. Job listings, the number of jobs advertised during this quarter were slightly increased than the last quarter, but the last quarter did include the holiday period where traditionally employers don't employ over that particular period as well. We continue to share the jobs across our social media channels and have a good following across those media channels too that engage with us as well. Some of the other things that we're looking at, especially around workforce development, is how do we encourage or support career development and career pathways across the district. So we've had some conversations with TEC around skill-based learning. We're part of the advisory group at Telford, so how do we engage and involve the community in perhaps some of those micro-credential courses down at Telford, and also looking at ways in which we can, you know, as part of that attraction and retention, also encourage working and living in Clutha as well, and looking at different ways to do things, you know, no longer the traditional careers expo, but perhaps we're looking at the opportunity perhaps to use podcasts as a way of engaging across the communities and further afield in our district as well. The destination management work continues as we complete some of the projects. The Gabriel's Gully story map has been successful, and they have been selling some of that product, so it's good to see product out there. We engaged with Tourism New Zealand recently and took them on a whāmela of the district, which is always good to do to showcase our product. And also we're looking at upgrading our website and just doing some fine tuning to make it a little bit more user friendly. So that's being undertaken at the moment, and at the same time updating our image library. And also we've completed the first draft of the Carter Nugget Point integrated master plan as well. So we're looking now to socialise that document in their first place with their stakeholders. So we have had discussions with DOC, and we're looking to have discussions with Council next as well. We continue to have partnerships with our neighbours that help enable us to be able to continue to work across, especially the destination management space as well. And just as an aside, our ministry, so our contract for Heartland Services with the Ministry of Social Development just had the contract renewed for a further 4 years through to the 30th of June 2028. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Linda? please. Councillor Fouts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Linda, thank you for the report. I'm just regarding 2.4 regarding businesses. I think we just sort of talked about this at lunchtime, actually, just sort of the main street of Balclutha in particular. What's your feel from the businesses? Is it positive? Are they struggling? What can we do to help build some more businesses to start up? Or
I mean, we still support business startups. That they've been diminishing in numbers, the number of business startups. I guess it's hard for retail, and particularly hard for retail. They've got to look at, an online presence as well as a physical and shop presence as well. And we also understand that, given the current economic times, that discretionary spending from a consumer perspective is down as well. So it's about, because we've seen shops close, and they're continuing to close, especially in the main street. A lot of services in our main streets now, but it's what can we do to attract a business to come here? And it's that whole, it then sort of ties back into that whole living and working, creating a package in an environment in which people want to come here and to live and work, because it's more than just, opening a shop. It's about understanding your consumer and being able to bring you, because we want people to bring their families here. So it's, what can they do when they're here? And, it's about supporting the whole package.
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Any further questions for Linda, please? I've got one here on the Kaitangata House and land packages. You talk about doing the Clinton one as well. What about Tapanui and Lawrence? Because you'd also done some work there. Is that still happening?
I've just had a conversation with Councillor Herbert. We had some initial meetings with West Otago, and what drives the land and house package is the community group,
Right.
and it has to be led by the community. So we're just going to re-engage now that perhaps there's a small group of people ready to take the next step, continuing with Benji down in Clinton to the next stage of where they're at.
Okay, no, that's good. Thank you for that. Sorry, Councillor Graham.
No, I was just answered it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor
Oh,
Herbert.
and and thank you, Linda, for the quarterly report. And the quarters roll around pretty quick, don't they?
I do indeed.
So on the Otago Cycle Trail Collaborative, and
Yes.
this probably follows on from the extensive work that's been done through all at our place, and just about everybody ticked walking and cycling and that. So they're all talking. Is it all those groups talking? That's what we're calling the Otago Collaborative Trail.
The Otago Cycle Trail Collaborative includes the Great Rides mainly. So it's the Clutha Gold Trail is from our region, and then you've got the Lake Dunstan, and then you've got the Central Otago Cycle Trail. So it's a regional approach to bringing people through and doing the combined trail network.
And nothing to do with the little stuff that's going on that weekend.
No, that's.
But you're still involved in a bit of an advisory role there.
Yes,
Yeah.
like we supported the Trails group over in Tapanui.
And so they are talking to other groups in the district
Yes.
with each other, because that's
Yes,
always
well, they
about a
would
fear
be-
that they get disjointed because they've all got a common goal.
And because we've also got the group down in Owaka as well.
So they're all talking.
Well, we would like to think that we could make them all talk through our website.
Thank you.
Make the
Yeah.
opportunity together.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
Councillor McAteemney.
Yeah, through the chair. Linda, you've done an agricultural productivity report. Was that with the ORC?
No, we're part of the Otago Regional Economic Development Group.
Yeah.
So it's across the region and across all the economic development agencies.
Okay, and what's the aim of the?
Well, we understand that productivity, if you look at productivity from Otago region compared to, and across the agriculture sector compared to the rest of the country, it's low. And it's about what can we do collectively across our regions. And of course, Clutha's got high employment within that sector. It's what can we do to enhance and improve productivity, whether it's through technology or, they talk about that whole work smarter, not.
So when you're comparing it to regions, there's some that, how much of it's related to simply the land class?
It's done from an employment perspective across the different sectors, and sheep and beef and dairy and horticulture is the current. I'm happy to share the report once we've fine-tuned it. At the moment, we're just testing the assumptions that were in that productivity report across the sectors, like with with the beef and with dairy and with horticulture. A lot of the information was taken from Infometrics data, which would be recorded within our quarterly reports that we subscribe to.
Not beef and lamb or dairy and Z.
Yeah, beef and lamb and dairy and Z have been part of those, will be part of those conversations and those assumptions.
That's right. I was just making sure it wasn't typed. There's been a much more one done by the ORC.
Oh, yes,
For
yeah.
the regional policy statements.
Yeah.
Please, it's not part of
No, I mean, the Otago Regional Council are part of ORED. They're part of the network across the region, but this is an independent.
Yep. Thank you.
Any further questions for Linda, please? Okay, there's a motion there on page 17 that we received the report. Is somebody happy to move? Councillor Bouts, seconder. Councillor Volwheeler. Any further discussion? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Thank you, Linda. Now, policy team report is Cara now.
Just not here, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you, Madam Chair. So in Peter's absence, the policy team has whipped up an update of what they've been at. They've added on to what was in previous reports. I'll take it as read, except just there's a couple of things in there that for the representation review arrangements, the consultation for that, or the pre-consultation, is going to be 1st of May to the 31st of May. And the other one was the submission process with the social pinpoint. It sounds like that's going really well, and there's been some submissions come in, but there's been a lot of views stuff, so people have been in there looking at all the information and stuff, so that's been working out really well. Any questions?
Any questions for Sharon, please? Questions? Okay, there's a recommendation on page 26. Is somebody prepared to move? Councillor Graham, seconder Councillor Herbert. Any further discussion? To the vote, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. The management accounts reports tray.
Kia ora, everybody. Just happy to take it as read and answer any questions.
Reports for Trey on this report. I know we've kind of probably discussed it at all in the risk, but is there anyone that wasn't here that wants some clarification? Okay. There's a recommendation there on page 29. Is someone prepared to move?
So moved.
Councillor Payne, seconder. Councillor Kennedy. Any further discussion? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Trey. Greg, investment portfolio update. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take this one as read, but happy to take any questions or discussion.
Any questions for Greg on this report? Got one. Our accumulated return there at 14.36 is how, what will be, you know how we usually so much off the rates, and then there's so much kind of left for the long-term plan discussion kind of stage. Do we know where we're at with that?
Another calculation.
No, I've got it. Through you, Madam Chair, Greg did a quick calculation yesterday. We're just gonna double check it, but it's looking at around 2.2 million.
Above budget, the 800.
After the 800?
After the 800 and after the internal interest, it goes back to our reserves. But we do just want to double check.
Yeah.
Very quickly yesterday.
Fair comment, but I just wondered what it was. So that's
So good year.
it's been a really good year,
Yes.
isn't it? So, yeah.
And, sorry, Madam Chair, one more thing to mention is that we did mention this morning, but we have withdrawn the subsidies and the hub money that we hadn't withdrawn, we spoke of last week.
So it's kind of a true, sitting at a true balance at the moment.
My apologies, Sharon, that wasn't 6 million dead on, was it? What was that?
6.776, something.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions for Sharon? Right, Greg, sorry. There's a report, recommendation there on page 32. Is somebody prepared to move? Councillor Kennedy, second Councillor Volwela. Any further discussion? Put to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Thanks, Greg. You need this as well. Development Properties Update Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, take this one as read. Was just one thing I was going to mention. Development from last time was Rosebank Industrial. So we received 125k proceeds. The sale of 23 File Drive during March. And that leaves, I believe, currently one section left at Rosebank Industrial.
Yes, but have to report through you, Madam Chair, there's an update to that one. That sale has, I wouldn't say fallen through, has ended because we are still working through consenting issues for Rosebank Industrial, and those issues weren't 100% known to the purchaser at the time, and so he's decided to pull out, and that's fair enough. We weren't going to argue with that. What we are working on is the consenting issues relate to the status of the land, and we do need to get, we have an action, we are getting resource consents from regional council and ourselves that apply across the whole of the industrial site, so that nobody has an issue with consenting moving forward, and that should then address that. There has subsequently been a follow-up for 28 File Drive, and that particular purchaser is happy with the briefing we provided on the consenting situation, and we're anticipating perhaps a positive outcome from that. So unfortunately, those proceeds are really going to end up being returned as a result of that sale falling through.
Okay. Thanks for that. So, any further questions to Greg regarding this report? Councillor Kennedy?
Just wondering about the Stirling subdivision. When do we decide if that goes on hold?
Through you, Madam Chair, the plan was to see what the marketing campaign produces for Rosebank Terrace. There were some questions at Risk Insurance around the market and that, and so it would make sense to get some comfort around the market before making a decision to go and do something more at Stirling. That's the plan.
Okay, any further questions? Right. There's a motion there on page 35. Recommendation to accept the report. Somebody prepared to move. Councillor Payne, seconder, Councillor Herbert. Any further discussion? Put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. That brings us to the end of Corporate and Services Committee. Thank you very much.
today's session of the Infrastructure Strategy and Operations Committee. Any apologies?
Councillor McCroskey, Barron, Catherwood.
Someone prepared to move that?
Yeah, well,
Mayor Cadogan, seconded Councillor Mackie. All those in favour? Carried. Declarations of interest? No. I will proceed to item number 1, which is a item for information. The operations update, transportation. James isn't he is here. Welcome. The floor is yours, James. I take it as read. Questions?
Look, I
Councillor.
haven't got so much a question, but a comment, and just on 4, last month's public forum, I really enjoyed the fact that we got a report back on how that had been dealt with, because quite often it seems to us like it sort of got dealt with, we didn't hear about it, so I was really encouraged to read that, so thank you very much for that being in the report.
Mayor Cadogan.
not so much to the report, but please pass on to all your team. We're getting a lot of feedback that's so positive, sort of game-changing type statements. So I'm encouraged by what's coming out the wider, comments on the roading, onwards and upwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Discussion? If not, we'll go back to the recommendation on page 3, that the Infrastructure Strategy Operations Committee receives the operations update transportation. Someone prepared to move that? Councillor Kennedy, sorry. Seconded, Councillor Herbert, West Otago effort. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. On to item number 2, which is on page number 9, the operations update, green space and waste. Jason, welcome. New face.
Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon. The floor is yours.
Can the report be accepted as read? Any questions?
I think the last time my meeting took 2.5 hours. This is going to be a record.
Public forum took that long.
Any questions? No. You're getting off lightly, Jason. No discussion? If not, someone prepared to move the recommendation on page 9 that the Infrastructure Strategy and Operations Committee receives the operations update, green space and waste. Have a mover, Councillor Phelps, seconded. Councillor Herbert. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item number 3 on page 12, operations update water. Linda, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to present the report and take any questions.
Questions? Councillor Mackie.
Linda, through the chair. I want to just thank you. The Clinton water has been going very well for the township of Clinton. We had an outage the other day. Now, I'm fire chief at Clinton as well. So with all the telemetry gear that you've got with the readings of water in and water out, do you not know that instant there's no water going into the reservoir at Clinton?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we do.
You do?
We can see the flows.
Well, how come virtually the town was out of water before I even knew about it?
I'll need to look into that. So we do have alerts and they will be triggered at certain levels and certainly at the fire level.
Because I have to actually set up a tanker. We have a fire in the town. I have to set up a tanker, be dispatched at the same time because there's no water in the hydrant.
Yeah.
So I just thought with all the technology that you got, you'll be getting an instant read so that the warning could go out to Clinton before someone rings me in Clinton and says, "Oh, we're out of water." Yeah.
We certainly have that as part of our process for planned shutdowns, so it should be no different. And I will take that up with the team, because someone will have got those alerts.
Thank you.
Find out what action they took, if any.
Linda, during the soapbox sessions, one down in Kai, it was suggested that when they put out notices of boil water or restricted use and that they say why, as if a pump's gone down or something like that. Is there some way I thought we did do it all, are doing it better than we used to.
We're certainly trying to. We have to have that balance between being really technical and also being broad enough so that a normal member of the public actually understands. And so we take opportunities to review all of that. So we'll certainly look at that messaging again on the back of that feedback. Thank you.
I was going to say, Guy's the comms champion, and they do test us a few times around what we're saying, so they are interested. Comms is interested in making messaging as clear as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just through you. Linda, great report. So a couple of questions. Firstly, around the Tamata ROI reviews and audits, it mentioned here that there was going to be another meeting around mid-April, and that there was a summary meeting around mid-April. So I suppose, has that happened, and do we get a chance to see that? Will we see the results of that?
Yes, so that meeting has taken place. I wasn't required to attend. Tamata Arawai said they wanted to keep it operational. They provided us with some bullet points. They've stressed it wasn't an audit, it was a visit. But we do have some bullet point actions to work through. But quite a different flavour from the last visit/audit, I guess, when we think about the end of last year and where that led us. A lot of the actions that were raised or things that were raised are things that we've identified and we've got plans in place to sort.
Thank you. My next just comment really, and it's on top of page 15. In the second sentence talks about until leaks and cross connections within the upstream sewer networks at Awaka and Tapanui are resolved to reduce excess flows, these replacements will not be cost effective. So I suppose it really hammers home to me, when you go a couple of pages down to that I&I, that we've really got to get that sorted, because we've kind of, it has, pardon the pun, but it has a downstream effect, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
There's not much point us doing this when it rains or what have you, and it's filling up here. So we've really got to push on that I&I program, haven't we?
Yes, and I think that's about us stepping things up. I've had a look at the draft of the second letters that go. They're pretty lightweight, so we might have to might have to be a bit more snarly.
Thank you.
But yeah.
Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just through you, regarding the I&I inspections, or see here, notes on page 16, the property owners with houses on the market much more willing to comply. Are these non-compliance connections, potential non-compliance connections?
That's a really good question. I'm unsure of that. But certainly that would help the situation, Jules. Mike.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, the I&I letters are put on the property files, and there's a note that goes onto the property file when it's resolved. And what we have found is a lot of the times they'll wait until they're selling the property, and then they'll get them resolved, because they don't want that sitting on there. But they are definitely noted on the property file and noted on limbs.
Perhaps property owners, even if they're not selling, could be told that, I'm not sure if they're told that that goes on their property file, but perhaps that might be a helpful incentive, even those who aren't selling.
I agree. Thanks for that that idea, because it's probably something that will frighten a few people if they're thinking about selling. But as I say, we've also got the ability under our bylaws to go in and fix that and then invoice them. And so that's where we need to step things up.
Any further questions for Linda? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Linda, just under, in the report staffing, I see you've had a couple of resignations. Were they, we've only, our Three Waters team's only been going how many months? 7, 8 months?
Since July.
July, yeah. The, is there, have they moved on to other bigger and brighter things, or?
No, one was for medical reasons, and the other was someone who transferred across from the previous contractor, and I think perhaps a change of regime, and things decided he didn't want to work here anymore.
Right. The next question regarding Phoenix Dam. Are they just, is the team pretty confident they're going to achieve the bypass and so forth in time? See by 21 May, you start mentioning that the scope may change once work begins, but has it been progressing quite well up there, or?
The bypass certainly is, and we've had feedback even from Paul Blakely about the professionalism of the job that the local contractor is doing, and the regard he's holding for the environment and try not to disturb too much. So pretty confident that that will be done by the end of April. The Bungtown race is a little bit of unknown, simply because as we work along it, it's 4 Ks is the distance. There will be different challenges that the team or the crews that are working on it meet. So we've got one contractor who's working on the siphon and getting that operational, and then the contractor working on the bypass can then turn his attention back to Bungtown.
Have we got any cost estimates to date yet, what this is actually costing? Council?
Yes, so the costs we know of today, so we've spent, I think it's 13,000 maybe, on clearing the Bungtown track. That may not be accurate. We've had an estimate of 30 to 50K from the local contractor to do the bypass, and we don't have cost estimates. We've spent, I think it's 60, the 13, and the cost to date on the siphon and the other work is 65. But there'll be more to come, and most of it is manual labour rather than actually equipment.
I appreciate it. They're pretty labour intensive operation, which raises a question too from the soapbox. I got challenged when I made the statement that we'd have the other scheme up and running by the end of the year, the Greenfield Bore scheme. I was challenged that it wouldn't be. Can you please reassure me that it will?
I think that the Greenfield Bore is covered off in one of the other reports,
Right,
so perhaps
lovely.
I'll leave that surprise for that matter.
Okay then, and the final one is the aluminium advisory been asked, is the aluminium put in the water, or where does the aluminium turn up from? Is the question I got asked.
We do dose.
We do
So
doses.
the process should be to remove it, and that's why there is a minimum value that can stay in the water, and we just can't get the balance right some days.
Right, so is that like operator error, or is it?
Well, it's operator calculation primarily. We do have an automated dosing system at Stirling, and it's one of the things that the team are looking at, potentially a staff submission, because we should have that system working at every plant to remove that way the system will calculate how much is needed. At the moment, we're using guys doing jar testing and a calculation and putting in chemicals.
Right.
So do they not, they don't have exceedances at Stirling?
They did have last year, and we put that dose, it's got a name, I can't remember what it is. Streaming current meter. We put that in, and we haven't had an exceedance since.
Oh, right. Oh, excellent.
Sorry, just to be clear on that, they still have to do the manual dosing, but the streaming current meter adjusts when they have the dosing when there's like the river changes. So whereas in the other plants, the operator's got to go back and then manually adjust the dosing system. So it provides more automation between visits, so the dosing stays closer to what it needs to be as the river changes.
Okay. Any further questions? If not, someone prepared to move the recommendation on page 12? Councillor Kennedy, seconded. Councillor Volweiler, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We'll now shoot over to page 17. Item number 4A, another item for information, infrastructure, strategy and delivery update. Donna, welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I'll take it that the report has been read and any questions?
Mayor Cadogan.
Thank you, Chair. Donna, 2 people refused going through the land. Now, everyone that's on a rural water scheme knows it's a team effort. And we've always steered clear of the Public Works Act or anything. Do we have there's a percentage of the population out there at the moment that just need oxygen to be angered. Is there a way that we can, what is the cost to go through a Public Works Act? And if that's not an option, if that particular farmer wanted to not make the same compromises as his neighbours, can you go, well, that's another 20,000 and you pay for it? You want it over there and around your place, by all means, but you pay for it. What should your friends and neighbours pay for it? What's the options to just take a wee bit of the oxygen out of it?
So through you, Chair, yes, we try to do the rural collaborative approach. And to date, my understanding is our council's never utilised the Public Works Act. And I don't believe that's our current flavour of option, because that can cause all sorts of future issues and concerns. We do try to work really closely. Most private property owners are pretty open and cooperative. There's been a few instances where the projects have been delayed because of this, but we have managed to get it over the line. We could potentially write a report moving forward to see if that's an option that the council would like to work with moving forward.
I just feel if there isn't some way to force the issue, then, we had it at Waihola, delays, cost overruns. Now we've got it here, and it's just loading up your friends and neighbours. That's not good practice to me.
I'm happy to write a report with a proposal with options and your recommendations.
Yeah, love to see it.
Councillor Moore, did you have your?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll wait till Donna stops.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, hey, look, just a quick question. Mine's on 4.10, and you mentioned the Nuggets Road slip remediation.
Yes.
You mentioned that it was 2 months ahead of schedule, or 2 months ahead of time, and under budget. What does that actually mean for us? Because it's a signed contract, so I'm presuming we're still paying the amount, or can you explain just what that means to us?
Through you, Chair, so what that means is that we had an engineer's estimate and an actual budget value. So when we go out to tender, we have a figure in our understanding of what we believe it will cost us. And in actual fact, this contract is delivered under the budget value. So it's a win.
Yeah, so it's not like we've signed a contract for $1 million and he's delivered for 800,000, we're only paying 800. He's still, it's the way I've interpreted it, I think, yeah.
That's a positive outcome.
Any further questions?
There was a question, Mr. Chairman, that was held over from the previous one.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, through the chair. Donna, so can you please reassure me that the Greenfield wall will be operational by the end of the year as previously quoted by other council members?
So through you, the Chair, I can't confirm that because budgets are actually available next financial year as well. What I can confirm is that we're currently ahead of schedule, to the point that we will be requesting at next month's council meeting to bring forward some of next year's budget to allow the project to continue at the pace it's progressing. I think you were asking on a completion date as well. We can't confirm that right this time because we're actually currently in the process of getting prices for the water treatment plant. Once we have that confirmed, then we'll get the timeline of deliverables from those requested quotations, and then we'll get a better understanding. But because it's such a large project and it's a multi-year project and a multi-million-dollar project, you really want to keep the original planned completion date, which was next financial year, is my understanding.
The issue though is will it be done by by the end of the calendar year.
Oh, calendar or financial?
Quick calendar.
Sorry. I can't confirm that at this point in time because we're waiting on those prices to come back from the water treatment designs. They should be completed in about 3 weeks. Then we'll get that clearer picture.
And just to add, through Mr. Chairman, there was discussion at Risk and Assurance that Tamara Arawai is, the regulator is chasing us hard to get a firm date that we can give them for that, because we have a lot of notices attached to us around some of our schemes. So there's a lot of scrutiny and pressure about having a date. We have generally said for the end of the calendar year, we will get it. We will need to come up with a date for Tamara Arawai, which will be the same date we will give council. There will always be a disclaimer to that, of course, being a large capital project that can have impacts associated with it. The only other thing I'd probably say is, just given the questions that we get out in the community at the moment, is can we not call it the Greenfield Bore project? There is confusion over, the suggestion that the $20 million in total for the range of projects we have is for a bore only. It's the Greenfield scheme or water scheme group of projects, which, as we talked to this morning, is about 6 different contracts, I think it was, all making up the project. So if you could just have a think about it when you are talking to the public out there, that you are talking a group of projects. It is the Greenfields water scheme that we're talking about, made up of those 5 or 6 projects. I think it's about 6. So then we can get off this issue around saying the bore, which is only one component of that project. That's okay.
Just for carrying on from that conversation, Mr. Chair, so part of the soapbox concern was the township running out of water, and I reassured them on the advice that I've been hearing from council in my short career here that it would be up and running by the end of the year, because now that we're going to the outer race with Bungtown to feed the supply with summer next summer, there could be some very serious concerns that it might be inadequate. So hence me asking that question. Moving on to 1.3, the Lawrence stormwater modelling. So I see in there.
Sorry, just to confirm for you, Mr. Chair, the whole reason we're doing the outer race is because the outer race plus current Phoenix Dam catchment is enough to supply Lawrence even in the summer. So that's the advice that we've had from our water ecologists looking at the catchment sizes. So just to put that one to bed, the concern was the Phoenix Dam catchment on its own isn't enough to get Lawrence through a summer, but the Bungtown Creek and Phoenix Dam is enough from the advice we've received. The only other update Donna might want to give is there's a bit more information that came to light after the PCG meeting this morning, that the chlorine booster side of things is included in the scale of the project at the moment. So that was just to clarify that question we had this morning.
Yes, apologies, I kept it quiet. I thought the project manager might have mentioned that. So that's around the Carn Road area.
Yes, but sorry, team, Mr. Chairman. If you're going to say something like that, we need to explain the context so the councillors that weren't at risk and assurance.
Sorry, I forgot. Apologies. One of the issues with this, as we have with some of our current supplies, we need to have a chlorine residual throughout the whole scheme. It's about the backbone of the scheme is about 40 kilometres of pipe in a range of different directions. So not only do we need to produce compliant water at the treatment plant and ensure it has a chlorine residual, we've got to make sure at the extremities of the scheme that there's a chlorine residual as well. So part of the design and included in the current scope is a chlorine booster to ensure that there's chlorine residual around the whole scheme. So that's trying to make sure, as we've discussed previously, we do an upgrade. We want to make sure that we lift our boil water notices when we do that, because we're producing compliant water. And it's compliant right to the end of the scheme as well.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Mayor Cadogan.
Yeah, my apologies. I thought I only had one question, but I've got a few. Donna, 5.2 is the first one. Hospital Creek project. Is that finished, or are they going back to tidy up the walkway top of it?
Through you, Chair, the project is completed. We actually have had the contractor come out and put some more topsoil and grass seed on top of. We've handed it over to operations.
Was that last week? So, because it was about a week ago, someone gave me a chip.
When I think we advised through media as well, through you, Mr. Chairman, that we were closing it to do that work. So that's now complete and that'll be up.
I can double check on the completion date, but I know that that section is planned to be delivered.
And then the next one, Milton to Waihola, when we're at the Waihola soapbox, because I had in my head, the plant's getting commissioned in April. And yet, it's ambiguous. Is the water not, when, is it June that Waihola Township people turn the tap on and something comes out, or is it April?
Through you, Chair, the planned date for the actual turning of the tap, as you've put it, will be June. So the pipeline work, which was always, it will be completed end of this month. Then there's got to be a trialling period and a proofing period.
I jumped the gun, damn it. But wait, and then the last one, I had a meeting with the Milton swimming pool team, and I made the bold statement of, hey, we're just waiting for you to raise the money. We're all set to go. I got shot down. Where are we with the Milton swimming pool? Something about consents or waiting. I got caught out.
So through you, the Chair, I've actually written an internal email to Jules and Steve advising from further due diligence and investigations. That I'll be putting a staff submission up going forward that's potentially going to be public excluded because of commercial sensitivities within an area. But I can explain to you later.
But through you, Mr. Chairman, there was always, we were always doing work to refine the total cost of the project, so we didn't have project surprises for something as costly as this. And that's what we've been working on, and it was always our expectation that we would be bringing that into the LTP process because it might have had a budget implication, and that project was always going to be potentially subject to council scrutiny for the LTP. So it made sense that we just pulled it all together for that. When Donna was talking about the staff submission, that's effectively the report that will bring all that information together for your decision making.
Thank you.
My apologies, Councillor Martin.
Oh, through you, Mr. Chair. Donna, yeah, 1.3, the stormwater modelling. So as it's expected for review on the 22nd, of course, this week. But so when you say review, is that with the external consultants or is that internal or?
Through you, Chair, it's a little bit of both. And I was hoping that Nico would have been here by now. I'd actually given him a heads up that I thought, I think our section will be here at 3. And he's frantically, literally driving back. He should be here like any minute because I had a funny feeling that you might be asking questions on the Three Waters asset modelling. So Nico, once he arrives, he'll be able to give you the full details.
I hope that was an enjoyable feeling.
Well, any further questions? If not, back to page 17, the recommendation that the Infrastructure Strategy and Operations Committee receives the Infrastructure Strategy and Delivery update. Someone prepared to move that? Councillor Ludeman, seconded. Councillor Bold-Wheeler. All those in favour? Carried.
Mr. Chairman, just we'll note that if Nico comes in, we can come back to this item and just speak to that if that's okay.
Yep. Everybody happy with that? Right, we'll go to page 30. Item number 5, is it?
Yes.
The compliance update report.
Good afternoon. I'm here to present the report and take any questions that you may have.
Questions, gentlemen?
All green boxes?
Yeah. There's no questions. Someone prepared to move the recommendation on page 30? Mayor Cadogan, seconded. Councillor Phelps. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Well done, mate. That was easy. Yes. So, what do we do as far as?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we can always,
I can just, if I'm chairing the next one, I can just, if he's
He can
here, we
just
can
accept
just adjourn, swap
Right,
over. and
if
go.
everyone's happy with that, I'll declare this meeting over. Thank you, and the next meeting is the regulatory and community agenda.
Kia ora koutou, named, I'll move apologies from councillor McCrosty, Finch, Barron and Catherwood. Someone seconded councillor Graham. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against, thank you. Agenda item number 1, Kelly, welcome, Kelly. I moved it, Bruce seconded, Bruce G seconded. Welcome, Kelly. Floor's yours.
Kia ora koutou, everyone. With the indulgence of the chair, I'll present my report and make a few comments to embellish it slightly. Firstly, just wanted to say that a couple of my managers and myself are going through the Clutha Stars program at the moment, and if I benchmark those people against the rest of our team, there's been a sharp change in some of their questioning and their sense of ownership of their particular areas. So I just thought you might be interested in hearing that. You'll notice on page 4 that we've colour-coded our report, and just to go over that briefly, obviously we've set a fairly high benchmark here, and the orange is the area to look for. That is areas which we think there could be some improvement, but they are acceptable. Some of those areas, like the safety for the aquatic services, are very difficult to get out of orange. So under health and safety, obviously we want 0 accidents, so it's going to be difficult to lift that. So just please be aware of that. A few comments around aquatic services. So you'll note the pool safety audit result was in full compliance. That is a voluntary audit that we carry out. It costs about $1,000 a year. And it's a useful exercise for us to benchmark ourselves against other pools across the country. Obviously, those who want to participate in a voluntary thing are probably some of the better providers around the country. You're unlikely to participate if you think it's going to be a negative result. And this year we achieved status in every single category for both of our pools, which was a very good outcome. You'll see at the back of the report, the first couple of pages, just to give you a sense of what that looks like. On a no surprises basis, we've shut down the Milton pool, as we always do about this time of year. Now that plant is in a very fragile state. And we have continuing concerns that when we try to turn it on again at the start of the next season, that we will struggle and that in fact it may not start at all. So I'll just leave that with you for your consideration. We're also doing work on the filter at Balclutha. So that filter system has perforated twice so far this year, which has resulted in unplanned closures, which are clearly a critical fail trying to deal with community services. That filter is planned and budgeted to be replaced during the shutdown in the middle of this year. And you may be interested to know that the one vessel that we have currently will be replaced by 2 side-by-side vessels, which means that in future, when we do servicing on the filter, we do not have to shut the entire plant down. I think what you can take from this is that we are sweating some of these assets pretty hard, and some of them are getting very much towards the end of their life cycle. Councillor Ludman asked at the last meeting whether we could do more activities for particularly young people, and I'm sure you'll be pleased to know that we roster on more staff for the holiday period and reintroduce the floating toys. I understood they had several buckets of patches to keep those things afloat, but just to say that's the start of a program, not the end of it, and we're particularly interested in growing more programs for youth, for the aged, and for hydrotherapy, which is other programs we're looking at later this year. In community housing, just noting continuing high occupancy rates, which is fantastic, and also very high KPIs for response to our tenants. We did unfortunately have a situation with a physical altercation between a couple of our tenants and one of our blocks, and that situation is currently before the police and the courts. This has raised for me a number of issues around our community housing, and I fear we may be drifting towards social housing, which is a very different category. I think if that is the decision of council, then that is fine and we can put management plans in place around it, but I would hate to accidentally slide into that category without full consideration. So it is my intention to bring a paper back to council in the near future with the benefits of the LTP consultation to look at our community housing and where that is going and bring some recommendations about its future. In the community support and development space, just noting that we now have every high school in the region represented on the Youth Council, which is an improvement for us. and that we have our first Matariki event coming up. You'll find details of it on page 13, and obviously we'd love to see you at those events. Waste education. So there's been some fantastic feedback recently, particularly around zero waste for schools and enviro schools. So every time we go into a school, we run a program, we have feedback, and that's been remarkably strong. We've also had a school locally achieve its bronze status. So that is a signal that it's had a long-term commitment to environmental improvements, and that signals to its parents that their kids are deeply engaged in that. We also had a letter provided to us, which you'll find in the report from Save Board, and that is recycling Tetra Pak, which shone a very positive light on the Clutha district. I heard earlier in today that, some discussion around bikes. We are currently also investigating a bike recycling program to remove bikes from waste and have them recycled in multiple different ways. Final thing here is around road safety. This report looks a little different, and what I've tried to do here is we run the road safety program on behalf of Waka Kotahi. They contract us, and those areas of focus are their contract requirements. What I tried to do is identify the different activities that we are doing and how they meet those requirements of that contract. Again, on a no surprises basis, that contract finishes after 3 years and this financial year, and we're pretty sure that we'll see some changes to that contract that have already been signalled through government intent. It's likely the funding will continue in some format, but it might be slightly shifted, and therefore those focus areas will also change. So thank you for that indulgence, and happy to take any questions on that or other comments.
Thank you, Kelly. Comprehensive report. Questions, team? Councillor Herbert, followed by Graham.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. So my question is, and thank you, Kelly, for the report. My question is around the Youth Week event and your pop-up movie.
Yes.
Look, great to see them doing some positive stuff, but I suppose all these things cost money. So I'm just kind of wondering, do we have a role to play in funding that, or do they fund that on their own, or do they have their own kind of project funds, or how does these things all cost money? And just wondering how the nuts and bolts of that fit together.
So as an overall picture, our youth council actually costs the council very little. So it's a bit of time from some of our councillors, particularly acknowledge both the Mayor and Councillor Payne. And then they do have some small budgets. In this particular case, they're actually going out for funding from community, and they've approached local businesses to see if they will help fund. We are looking for a major sponsor, and unfortunately the person we did have lined up has not come through in this particular case. And I was talking to Lily about this very issue this morning. She has a backup plan.
That's kind of my fear. We're only talking a month away, exactly a month away. And so is there sort of an underwriting to stop this event from failing and the sponsorship and the particular kids? Because bearing in mind, things are pretty tough out there for these businesses. So they might be just, it might be a little bit of a hard road to hoe for the people, which I hope it's not. But just, I suppose my core thing is these things cost money. We better make sure it goes ahead.
So thank you for your concern.
Yep.
And yes, the backup plan is ready to go.
Thank you.
Ken and I often underwrite it, but we're more than happy to get assistance.
Can't hear you.
We're more than happy to get assistance. Councillor Graham, Ludeman, McAtammany, and I think there's another hand up, but anyway, we'll go with.
Firstly, through your chair, just in reply to that, there was an email last night from the Youth Council about yeah, Kelly, just have a look at the before and after on Argyle Street. What a difference it's sort of taken out of Cold War Russia to at least into the 21st century. Very impressive. But the other thing is on the table of the waiting list, and I couldn't find the asterisk, which would probably explain it all to me, but it's got the total application by site as 60 and the total actual people is 26. Can you sort of enlighten me on that? Because my maths has never been great, but can't figure that one out.
Yeah, sorry, the asterisk has dropped off. What it represents is the fact that 26 active people are looking. They are looking in multiple locations, so we count them multiple times where they want to go. What it really indicates is that we have really strong interest in both Milton and Balclutha, and people are prepared to take any opportunity in those areas, but there is not strong demand in other regions.
Thank you.
Councillor Luton, followed by McIntyre, then South.
Just going back to the Youth Week event, is that a non-alcoholic event?
I believe it is non-alcoholic.
So I've just been, yeah, because a prospective sponsor has asked that question, so might be useful when you're going to sponsors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McIntyre.
Yeah, again, through the chair, Kelly, on the same Youth Week event, what was the budget for that projector?
So I'm going to do this from memory. It's about $1,250 in total, I believe.
Yeah. Because I was a little bit perturbed when they were only asking for $50 from sponsors and they hadn't got anywhere after knowing that for 2 months. I would be very careful what I say. But, and then Lily sent me an email out to us yesterday. I didn't think that would be that hard an ask.
I think Lily is asking for council support here to work with their mentees and just maybe help them with some guidance around how to approach people and the right sort of messaging. I think in hindsight, that might have been useful to do before they went out. So I do take your comments on board.
And I will say that there was a high churn this year, and we've easily got the youngest ever youth council. They're young. And it's really quite nice. You have those 1 or 2 strong older characters. They're there, but possibly not as much as other years. Just Kelly, questions on Milton Swimming Pool, because I had always in the back of my mind, it was that crack down the middle and we put a liner on with a 3-year guarantee. But you touched on it's actually the plant and the infrastructure that's fragile. Percentage-wise, is it just say a pump is fragile, or is it the whole shooting box?
So thank you for the question. So just to firstly say, I am not an expert on filter systems, so please take this with a grain of salt. There are problems with both. So the pool itself, it's an old concrete pool. It has a number of leaks, and yes, it needs retiling and resealing. It is a fairly major project in its own right. However, the far bigger problem is the filter system. So at the moment, that extracts water, runs it through a filter, heats it, and returns it to the pool. That is the system. It is in the state at the moment that the service people refuse to open it because they fear that if they do, it will not run again, and they do not want to be held accountable for that. So right now, the valves intended to prevent water coming back into the system, despite the fact they are new, are not working entirely, which means we have a systemic problem inside the filter itself.
If I was to take the average statement from the soapboxes of Milton, it was just, hey, let's just keep using that swimming pool. The perception of especially the Milton public that we're being exposed to, so to speak, is that, we can just, the old ones just sitting there ready to go. Also, can I just have a clarification, because urban legend, it's constantly been getting said. I know I've never received an offer from a particular benefactor to line the pool for the community themselves. Has council ever been approached by anyone with an offer to line that swimming pool? I'm saying no, but it's only the political that I'm saying no to.
So I am not aware of anything, but I will have to check the record.
I can say I haven't received anything. Your worship, Jules, have you had anything along those lines come your way?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, your worship, there's been discussions, but I don't ever recall an actual offer being made, because the issue is not just the pool, it's also the interconnected pipework and the whole system. So there have been pools that were lined after the Canterbury earthquake, but there's a whole lot of other issues that need to be worked through with that. I can't recall who the discussion was with, but that's only one part of the picture to even consider the rest of the system.
Okay.
So just to cover that, may very well be that someone that's had a discussion might have regarded that as an offer, whereas we would be always saying we would be wanting to see the paperwork on an offer. We do that, but Jules is saying there have been discussions. That's okay. I haven't received anything in an offer sense, and Jules is saying he hasn't received anything in an offer sense.
So there hasn't been an offer. So I was going Councillor Payne, Mackie, Martin.
And no, I'm right now. It's all been said. It was about youth council. It's all been said.
Nice. Councillor Mackie, followed by Martin.
Through the chair, So they're nursing that Milton pole along, because I'm nursing the Clinton pole, where we pole at Clinton, we need to replace our sand filters too. So that's happening this season, the community is going to replace them. So have you done a ballpark figure on a cost to replace the filter system in the Milton pole? Has there been because you're going to have to buy, even if you did a new pole, you're going to be doing a sand filter system.
So the short answer is no. The slightly longer answer is we know from the Balclutha pool that a filter system for a pool of that size runs to about $250,000. But again, with the Milton pool, and I think this goes to the question that was asked before, it is not simply the filter. So you would need to look at all of the pipe work. The pool itself needs significant work. The waterproofness needs work. You are talking about a fairly significant cost just to keep that pool operating. Now, please don't interpret this as me trying to influence that process. It's not. That's a decision for council, but it is an expensive process. And if it was wanting to be explored, we'd need to do some fairly serious work to work out the total cost of that project or potential project.
Thanks.
Councillor Martin.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Kelly, doesn't sound too good, does it? Sort of turn up for next swimming season, go and turn the key and nothing happens. Leaves us in a pretty precarious position for the Tokomarinara community. I dare say we'll have something in place to deal with this sooner than later, have we? For the long-term plan coming up, or there'll be some recommendations coming to council sooner than later?
So I think this is tied up with the new pool and library solution. That would set a time frame, and we would have to backwards engineer it to see how we keep this pool running until then. The alternative is that a different solution would have to be sought. So, for example, the continuation of use of that pool. So I'll wait for direction on that.
Right. Sounds like it could be a case of throwing good money after bad, doesn't it? But Kelly, you made the comment about the community housing versus social housing. I sort of take out of that conversation a little bit there. Is it around the selection of the tenant and the criteria, is where you're alluding to with that conversation? Who makes these decisions and selections?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, and it is slightly complex. So at the end of the day, the council set the selection criteria, and that comes through in our policy and how we select people. To give a little bit of detail around this, so community housing is generally considered to be pensioner flats, and for those who, and in terms of community housing, ours tend to be the bottom end of that, which is we intentionally keep them as cheap as possible to make them as accessible to people as possible. We have in community a growing number of people with mental health issues, with addiction issues, with looking for placement after prison, for example. This is considered social housing. Now, I think there's a really good question. Are these two groups, ideally placed to be put in the same area? And I'm not entirely convinced that that works for either of those particular groups.
Right.
And I think the issue is that over time, for whatever reason, our criteria have been set in such a way that we've started to accept people with broader issues, or possibly those people have been pushed onto us by other services. That sort of cheap rent certainly promotes that to those people in those groups. And I think what's really needed is a recalibration to make sure we've got that right, to also look at more broadly community housing, what we could offer. Given we're going to be going into tough financial times, we need to do that sensibly. And I think there are a number of options we could consider. But given we're on the cusp of the LTP, I think it's good to gather that community feedback and then bring that all together in one go.
So as our roles as councillors, how can we help? Like, is there anything you want to ask of us, or you're going to go through your policy department and come back to us with recommendations, or what are you suggesting or proposing or thinking?
So I think it's that recalibration. We'll come back with these. We need to reconfirm the intent of council and what it wants this community housing to do. And I think we'll then present a set of criteria to make sure that we're aligned to that. And we would also present the consequence of that. So if we see, for example, a drop off in demand, do we accept that as a council on behalf of our community? So those sort of things will be part of the paper that we present later.
Do you envision that'll be long before it get back to us?
No, I'm certainly hoping not. So I believe it will be the meeting after next. is
Right.
when
Oh, that's
we're
good.
targeting. Yeah.
Possibly to give context to the conversation, especially for new councillors, about, I think, 6, 7, 8 years ago, when we were running at a time, we used to have about 20% vacancies, especially in various areas. And then we were also seeing, because that was quite literally elderly person housing. You're not old, you're not getting none. It was quite difficult to get in. And yet we had this need from a community and a social. So top priority always went to over 65, and then it goes, there's quite a simple gear change down of the criteria. But the last thing I would like to see, especially with the extreme needs that are out there, that we would put a punitive or an arbitrary rule in that would exclude people when we have a house empty. I know that, this particular incident that you're talking of, I wouldn't have seen it coming. So you never know what's around the corner, I suppose. But it's been working well up till now, I thought, overall. And I suppose that's just like if you and I lived together for long enough, John, there'd probably be friction. It's just how it is. I'll go to Councillor Mackie, followed by Wheeler.
Yeah, it's got very difficult, hasn't it? Because I was privy to a video the other day of an altercation at Clinton Flats, and I told the locals, because a few of them come to me early and they said, we're having problems. I said, right, you've got to get proof. You've got to get some cameras up or do something to get some proof. So they did, right? And yeah, when I grew up, it was a pensioner flats. That's what they were called in Clinton. They were just the pensioner flats. And I think that a lot of this responsibility is stuff that the government, past governments have done that has all of a sudden become our problem. Mental health's a real mess. They closed some of the safe houses for these people to stay and everything like that. So they actually got put on our doorstep, and we have to try to do something about it. Now, when you're mixing, I don't want to say sane people, but when you're mixing people that are elderly people and vulnerable people in with ones that have got ones who might, at the drop of a hat, go off, they might have severe drinking problems, it becomes a real balancing act between trying to keep everybody happy.
And this is community living. So, being part of a community.
Yeah, perhaps a bit of it needs to be handed back to central government to start funding as well,
I think beyond that, we also have the need to look at, worker accommodation, emergency housing. There are so many different categories. So these are all important issues for the community.
Councillor Van Wheeler.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. Carly, do you have sort of a rough idea of the applicants that got there at the moment, or sort of just your experience in recent history? What percentage would be social, just having social housing needs, and what percentage would be not just your senior citizens looking for accommodation?
Yeah, I would need to actually do the calculation. I would say, at the present time, most of our tenants fit in the older category, that they are given preference over the other categories of people. And we've only got a few on the waiting list that I would consider to be a social housing need at the moment. That has varied in the past. So those people tend to get pushed around by the agencies looking to house them. So they withdraw them from our lists if they are not successful getting a place.
Would it be possible perhaps to go both of these 3 units and to perhaps combine, put the social housing into one set of units, similar to those 2 units? Just
Pretty much happened, Bruce. Tosh failed pretty much as the drafting game.
Yeah.
So I think that'll come back as part of that recalibration of council to look at some of these things. Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you want a hand with your application, I'll thank you for that. Oh, sorry, any further questions? Kelly moves on. Thank you, Kelly. I've got a recommendation back on page 3. Someone prepared to move? Moving councillor Graham, seconded councillor Bolwell. All those in favour? All those against? Move on. Debbie, welcome. Library report from Debbie. Floor's yours, Debbie.
Thanks, Your Worship. Kia ora koutou, everyone.
Kia ora.
This report covers our activities over during March, but just before we touch on that, I've just got a couple of other updates for you. So recently, our Lawrence Library instigated a late opening on the first Wednesday of every month at 10:30. This is to enable the staff who often don't work together to actually meet, occasionally to do some planning and also for training purposes. And this is working really well. And I just want to advise you that both our Milton and Owaka libraries will be doing the same thing, and we'll be advertising that locally. So that's just one update there. The other is that just following Kelly's around school holidays, we've had a very, very busy school holidays. Belclutha Library alone last week exceeded over 1,200 visitors a week. So but that was in part due to we were lucky to have the Otago Museum come and do some work with the children, which was fantastic, really well attended by families. And that's the thing that we're noticing actually, these holidays, we're getting lots of family groups, which is really great to see. Another current update, which isn't included in here, is around the LTP. I thought you might be interested to hear what our guys are hearing and seeing. So for the first week of the consultation, all of our facilities have said that it's been relatively quiet, quite a lot of interest. Some people asking questions on where to find information, but the general view was that, yes, they want to consider and wanted to take forms home with them to have a think. So we're expecting that they'll definitely pick up in coming weeks, but that was very much around gathering information. And the general tone in terms of people's demeanour, I suppose, to our staff has been really good, really positive. And we're really promoting the have your say, get engaged. And we thank Diet too for help with some of the collateral material as well. So otherwise, you can take the report as read. The only thing that I think of is really interesting in this is each of the libraries, they all provide, and the ISO provide their reports and I compile them, put them together. And the common theme that came through really, really strongly in these, if you read each of the libraries' reports, is the continuing need for digital assistance and the scale of it and scope of it. This is one of the reasons why we need training sessions, etc., because we've got to keep on top of this stuff to be able to help our customers. And we're also seeing the rise in scams as well. And we're promoting how to avoid those, and we work a lot with people. So other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Dave? John?
Funny you should say that through you, Your Worship. Look, I've written down the staff training around the devices. So how often does that happen for them? Is it a couple times a year or to keep themselves up? Because it's a fast-moving world, isn't it?
Exactly. And a lot of it's just sharing information with each other, because sometimes, I mean, we don't know what we're going to get hit with when someone walks in the door. You know, it could be like there was one gentleman who wanted to do some online shopping. He'd never done it in his life before, hadn't got a clue how to do it. So we helped him with that. Someone else has just got a new phone, they have no idea how to set it up. Or they're trying to contact a government department and they don't have a real Me account, or they don't know how to get in. But it's definitely broadening, and the different types of devices. Everybody has different types of phones, and yeah. So as it comes along, I know the teams work together and we share information, and these times around getting the staff together. Those 3 libraries that I've mentioned that are having that later opening, they have a number of their staff are part-time that don't normally work together, which is why it gives them an opportunity to actually share how the last week's gone, any tips and tricks that they're seeing, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Councillor Mackie? Sorry?
No, I didn't
you
have
didn't.
not this time.
Any further questions? John?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Donna, I just see in comparison here to some of our smaller libraries and so forth, that there's quite a decline in some of these sessions
that they're providing, like, does it get to a point where you actually question yourselves, is it viable? Like, so with some of the programs that you're operating, like when you see the numbers declining?
The numbers attending a program aren't an indication of the quality of the program. So when it comes to things like device drop-ins, when we're working with technology, we tend to do that on a one-to-one basis or very, very small groups because it's very individual. Where we get large numbers tends to be the things where we might have the after-school programs, for instance, and we'll have a bunch of kids that'll come in and do some creativity. So it really varies. It's not, it's about the quality, and that's one of the things we want to look at in the future, because all of our reporting is essentially quantitative. We talk about numbers. We give you the visitor numbers. We give you how many books are issued, all of that sort of stuff. What we try to tell you in the narrative that comes through is the stories behind the difference that we make to people's lives. Because for a lot of people that walk through our doors, they want help trying to access something. Something that it may be a council service, it might be a government department, it could be something else entirely.
I wasn't actually questioning the quality of it.
Oh, the viability.
The program, I was questioning the viability. Because where do we draw the line at the end of the day?
If we have a program that the community obviously don't want, we won't do it. We won't run it. But the way we develop programs, many of them are suggested by the community. It might be community groups, like for instance, Age Concern, where we work really closely with, and we run a lot of programs in partnership with them. It might be a suggestion from a particular sector or a group saying, hey, look, I'd really like you to do something like this. And we might try it. Now, our programs come at almost no cost, the majority of them. Basically, we might provide a cup of tea and that's it. So we'll try something. And if it gains in popularity, we'll build on it. If it doesn't, we won't. So we're not looking at any major costs or anything here. We try to listen to our community. So all of our staff are regularly talking to regular visitors. We talk with schools, other agencies, whoever's around that wants to talk to us, really.
Thank you.
Any further questions? There was, and I'm trying to think what it was that Bishop Tamaki kicked up about. It was in libraries.
The Rainbow Story Times.
The Rainbow Story Times. You ever get the chance, Brendan? Please do it.
We would love to. And just letting you know that Public Libraries New Zealand, which is the Association of Public Library Managers, have got a national statement around those libraries. Public libraries, by their very nature, are inclusive, and we try to celebrate diversity. But we also try to reflect each library. It's the same with ours. We might have little libraries, but each one of them is slightly different and reflects the nature of the community that they're in. So if we have the opportunity, we would absolutely love to. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a recommendation. Oh, sorry, no more questions just before we hit the recommendation. Someone prepared to move? Moved Councillor Volwell, seconded by Councillor Ludman. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you, Debbie. Number 3, we go to Mike. Welcome, Mike. Community project. While you're walking up, has anyone seen the painting of Magnificent? Someone's a good artist. What's yours?
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, no, Alice, she does a great job. So just a couple of updates, maybe, since this report was actually prepared. The first one is that, as you see on that page 40 in the Milton table there, when we prepared this report, it looked like possibly that Better Off funding, that there might be a requirement for council to actually put that funding towards water infrastructure. Now, so we had since had that clarified, and so that needs to be by mutual agreement between council and the central government. So Councillor Bolweiler, I'll be pleased to hear that. But that obviously that funding is still obviously to be accessed by council at the appropriate time. The second update is that, I'll say on page 42 for the Catlins projects, so Councillor Catherwood, if he was here, would be pleased to note that, so just today we've engaged with residents of Papatawai in terms of that picnic area project, so we're looking to progress that as well. Apart from that, happy to take any questions.
Questions for Mike, please,
Bishop?
That's the one we'll follow by Grant.
Not a question as such, but just relating to Milton and the decision we made at Taylor Park and locating the dog behind the old tennis court. It's a very enthusiastic group. Is actually making some progress there, and should see something happening in that area. And the reason.
Councillor Grant.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor, just on the Kaitangata boat ramp, and it doesn't read too well that an overspend of 4,831 on a budget of 10,000, and you do say, just want to clarify that the bulk of that money was on ORC consent.
Through you, Your Worship, is that money was spent to gain ORC consent. So the total amount, the 14,831, I guess would be comprised of fees from ORC, plus work, planning consultants, getting direction from Mana Whenua, etc. It's been quite a range of things required to actually get to a point.
So we've technically blown our budget before putting the shovel in the ground. And we really, and it looks bad, but it's through no fault of yourself or Kaipama or the boat ramp people.
I guess maybe you could say that we underestimated, the amount that would actually be required to gain that consent. So I guess there's a lesson there, but it's quite a process to go through.
Further questions, team? Councillor Mount.
Through you, Mr Chair. Mike, the project status sheets have created a bit of confusion between the Mayor and myself. And it was a topic that I did message you a while ago just for a little bit of information on them. But Mike, so you've got everyone split up in different project status sheets, and we've got the council funding component, then we have external funding components in place like the PGF, the BOF, the ORC, and the different ones. Is it possible, could we have some acronyms so we know what this is all about? That side of it. I'm just a relatively young councillor. And the other thing was so to actually total. Can we have a total at the end of your spreadsheet saying what the total council funding is and the total spend to date? Because His Worship struggled with the last lot. We got one down the end here.
We've got it.
We've got it now.
Remember I said it was
Beautiful.
a draft to be written up. The next one, the next morning came back perfect.
Whereabouts? What page is it?
On the bottom of each one.
Yeah, no, but like at bottom, at the very end, like a grand total of all the projects we were at.
So across all of the
projects,
etc.
Sorry, Your Worship, you haven't quite got it because I manually went through and did it, what the council had actually committed funding, and then I totaled what we'd spent to date, and there's still quite a deficit there of council funding. It's just it gives you a snapshot, bang, straight away. Well, we've committed ourselves to X amount, we've spent this to date, the difference to be spent yet is this amount. We're heading into some long-term planning, and I think it's pretty critical that we're aware of these figures.
The way I see it is, if you can
Because
make
His
your
Worship
rates
had a go
look
at
like a small figure, I can get away with it.
His Worship had a go at the figures, and they didn't align with yours.
I got the answer I was looking for.
But yeah, like a total of all the projects, of what the council's actually committed, and then what we've spent to date, and who these external funders are, and their contributions.
through you, your worship, I mean, so we can certainly make an attempt to do that, and that would be brought forward to the front of the report. We, as noted, we do have the totals per plan, if you like.
Yes, I do, yeah. I went through manually and totaled them all up with the last report.
The other thing I would note, I guess, and I've talked about this before, is that those sheets, obviously down the left-hand side, you've got everything that all of the projects that are included in the community plan. In some cases, they are for community facility type projects, which sort of naturally sit with a plan like a playground.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
But where you've got a plan like Waihola, for example, which is heavily relates to infrastructure, I note that, and then I also, where I can get, the funding that's been allocated and spent on those projects. So that can make somewhere like Waihola look like, we're spending a whole lot more than maybe somewhere like Tapanui, West Otago. Not necessarily the case. It's just purely that the community plan in Waihola was really focused on infrastructure.
I appreciate that, yeah.
So the budget and the amounts that are provided here relate, I've done my best to capture community plan time. It's not an attempt to cover what council spends.
Oh, certainly, yeah. Like I say, I appreciate that. And I've note too, you do raise about Tapanui, West Otago. Well, when I look through these project sheets, they're like the poor cousins. They've actually had bugger all commitment spent in their communities. But when I go through it and did it manually, calculated off your last lot of project sheets that come up, okay, so the council's committed $57.5 million for these, community projects. Our total spend to date was $28,800, and I think, shit, and we've got a wee way to go yet. So like those all up figures are quite staggering when you see them. So we've got to give it a bit of thought to how we go about it. And I do appreciate it's a revolving door. It's not just tomorrow, it's next year as well. So.
Through you, your worship, I guess the other comment I would make is that, I think that's important. A bit like the Kai boat ramp, it's about progress. What's actually being achieved, and that's the critical thing. Whether it is new infrastructure, roads, sewage, stormwater, etc., or whether it's playgrounds. Are our communities actually being enabled, with our support, whether that's funding or other support, to actually get on and do stuff.
Oh, certainly, yeah. We've got to keep
which is slightly, and we may not quite set the budget right. Might be too much or too little, but are we actually getting stuff done?
Oh, yes, appreciate that.
Okay, team. Before Jock says his third swear word, we better close it down. Do we do a recommendation?
I don't think anyone will lock me up, your worship.
Hell no. Have we done that? Where are we, Dave? We haven't got a mover or a seconder. Councillor Herbert, Councillor Payne seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
You're dismissed. Thanks, Mike.
Cheers, Mike.
Where's Malcolm? He is there. Well done. So welcome, Malcolm. Floor's yours. Cheers, Malcolm.
Thank you through there, Chairman. Building controls is, even though there's been a drop off in consents, the last 2 to 3 months have been reasonably static, which is really good. We are expecting our service delivery levels to take a wee bit of a dive next week with, we've got 4 days of training for the entire team for the new objective build program that's online consenting. So we're really looking forward to getting that kicked off the ground. We still don't have an actual live launch date because we need to just make sure it's working within their other software systems that we have. Animal control. It's ironic how we've been actively seeking unregistered dogs, and I think something like 115 have been found this year that we didn't know about, which is quite a huge number if you ask me. I was asked at the previous meeting about was there additional or extra complaints about dogs in Waihola and Kaitangata. Currently, our statistics are not showing increase on normal activity. Ironically, on social media, there seems to be a huge increase on people putting up dog complaints, hoping that the owners will sort it out rather than them ring the council, which is, it's good in some ways, but some cases it probably should come to the council because some of them are problem dogs. Apart from that, I think it's probably open for some questions.
Questions, Steve?
Thank you, Worship, for you. Just probably a question for you, Malcolm, or any of us sitting around the table with a decent memory. The amount of dogs you're allowed to keep in town, I think, is it 3? And the amount of dogs you're allowed to keep in rural?
You can apply for a license for additional dogs.
But the standard being?
I'm pretty sure it's 3 off the top of my head.
Rural?
Rural with the working dogs, it's changes obviously because some people have large teams of dogs.
There's no number on there, is there?
I don't believe there is.
Thank you.
Councillor Graham.
Through you, Mr. I'm asking on behalf of someone else, South, Malcolm. How do you track down these unregistered dogs?
That we are actively seeking, like somewhere we can see a dog walking down the street, where does it belong? And they do also go around doing registration checks, and it's quite surprising when they go to a property to do a registration check because there might be 1 or 2 dogs there and you find more than that.
You do that out in the country?
Yes, they do that out in the country.
Thank you.
Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, Malcolm along. Yeah, like I think I say this every year. Like at Telford, we bring in about 40 dogs every year. They're coming in just now, just starting as pups. I'm thinking they'll be part of this number, and they won't be registered for another month yet. Some of them are only 10 weeks old now, 10 to 12 weeks old. So they'll be coming in. They'll get registered. We actually invite Karen down to talk to our students and go through it and just explain what it means to get them registered and everything. So I'm thinking maybe that number's got another 40 off it somewhere because they were counted last year.
Okay.
Well, just pointing it out.
Yep, no, that's cool. One thing that Karen is quite keen to do is actually to offer she'd like to offer a free microchipping service for like a day, might be somewhere, just to try and encourage people to bring, dogs out of the woodwork, if you want to put it that way. So that's something that we'll probably end up putting a proposal forward for.
Further questions, anyone? Councillor Martin.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Malcolm. Number 4, staff, and we've a vacant position for a building control officer. So how is the staffing going? Like, the question probably is, like, we've got adequate staff, and we've got a right a number of staff, and are they keeping up with workflows? And just so I hear that poor people have got to the levels of compliance and stuff that they've got to meet before they actually can get on to do their day-to-day work is quite staggering. Is there quite a burden out there, or is that what discourages people from being building control officers, or?
That's probably an interesting one. Look, we are still actively seeking. Have done interviews today to try and fill a role. We're also looking just to see how we can manage the TA functions a little bit better. And that, like, we've got to do obviously a bit of an investigation on that to see whether we can justify either increasing the staff. We do find from a tradesperson perspective, and I'm probably talking from what I've been told over the years through many people that I talk to, a lot of the tradespeople go, I don't want to do the paperwork. But reality is the paperwork is not that bad because everything's going electronic, and there's so much stuff that's not handwritten nowadays because of it. So there's a bit of a perception there that tradespeople, they get frightened of paperwork because at the end of the day, a lot of tradespeople, they don't aspire to go off to varsity or anything. They just want to do their standard education, level 2 in NECA, and fall into the trades, and they would rather work with their hands. There's a bit of a misconception on the amount of paperwork that's out there, and it's a hard one to convince them that it's it. We also do get a wee bit of pushback. When I say pushback, some people say, I'd hate to do your job because some of the confronting situations that you come across, once again, that's a personality thing that different people manage differently. It's a tricky one. Like, some people sort of lead to confrontation, and some people manage to resolve it before it happens, if you know what I mean. So to try and convince people that it's not that bad of a job is a real hard battle, if you know what I mean. So,
Yeah. Just a question, and sorry for my naivness here, but a TA, you mentioned earlier about a TA. What's the acronym for TA?
the TA is basically the council. It's a territorial authority. So there's certain functions that fall under building controls. You have your BCA, which is the Building Consent Authority. So they deal with everything that needs a building consent.
Yep.
And the TA deals with everything that doesn't need a building consent. So simple things there. It could be things like compliance schedule, BWAF audits, illegal building work. But basically anything that hasn't got a building consent that should have.
So those are the sort of conversations that are going to have conflict.
Yeah, well, it can do, but.
When you mean it's an illegal building.
Yeah, it can do, yes.
So as a councillor, are we doing enough for our people on the ground that are facing these encounters?
As a councillor, are we doing enough? I think the TA functions are something that we do really need to look at closely to make sure that we're covering them and increasing the service across those. Occasionally you get it lucky where, for instance, this week I had 2 complaints come in. I dealt with them myself instead of putting them out to the team. I got lucky because the people listened to me and acted on it straight away. It's when the people don't act on it, it's the follow-ups that cause the problems.
Yeah, and I just ask these questions because with my round of soapboxes, I see the conflict, and I've seen it firsthand, and it's directed. It's not directed at worship; it's directed at our staff, and I'm just a little bit concerned for our staff. Like there's no need for it, so that's why I ask: are we doing enough as a council to equip our people with the right tools to manage this? Because it's not nice out there in some cases.
And you're dead right on that one. I myself would hate to put any of the staff members in a position where they feel unsafe, and I would fully encourage them if they feel like they're in a position where they can't diffuse it, they're better to walk away as quick as they can.
That's right, yeah.
And at the end of the day, I have had to follow up in cases after that, which I don't mind doing. The silly thing about it is when you follow on something, they've generally cooled down and you can talk to the people. It's when they're under the pressure at the time, you can't talk to them, they're in a rage. In some ways, I'd sometimes think, well, my job becomes easy because I've actually had time to think about it before I get back to them. So.
Well, like I say, being equipped with the right tools in the toolbox is better than having a vacancy sitting on our books. So
yes, yeah.
We're only as good as our worst person.
Yeah.
And people are our assets. So as long as we're looking after them and doing the best we can for them, we'll be good. Thank you.
Right, Tim, we've got a recommendation there. Are we time to go to that, or is there further questions? Thank you, Malcolm. Oh, hold on. Hands up, Tim. Oh, yeah.
Just to recommend.
Oh, you are. So moving and seconding? Done. So move Councillor Littleman, seconding Councillor Mackie. All those in favour? Those against. Thank you, Malcolm. Cheers. Thank you for your patience, Adita. Are you on? Enter and sign in, please. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors, Steve and staff. I will table the report as read, and just the usual highlights that there is still a steady influx of resource consent, about 10 or just over a month, and a similar amount being issued also every month. Within the statutory time frame, so we are 100% there. There were 2 items, just as a little update, that the legislation has changed. The government has indicated that they will suspend the requirement to comply with the significant natural areas provisions, which at the moment it doesn't affect the council because no work has been done in this particular area. And an update on the forestry, that some work is being done, so which has been investigated if a plan change would be viable. The the work is still in a very initial phase, so an update report will follow once we have more complete information and a proposal. Other than that, you would see the staffing and the structuring. So Freedom Camping Officer, the temporary Freedom Camping Officer, Peter Burton, has finished his term with the council and he's been thanked. He did a good job. Jessica Craig, who helped the planning team on a temporary contract since November, has been made a full-time staff, as a permanent staff member, as a planning officer. And as you can see in the report, I have resigned with my last day being June the 7th. Now, any question about the restructuring, I would probably ask Steve to answer any questions about that. I can only mention that any input from the staff is closing, submissions are closing this Friday. And the other matter I would like to mention, in view of security that just been raised, so staff safety and security, in Royal Freedom Camping and Bylaw Officer has been physically attacked by a camper. The police was called and they attended to the incident. No charges were laid because there were no independent witnesses, and we are currently investigating some body cameras and master checking. I just waiting some price update from the supplier, who is also supplying Joseph with these cameras. We also received now the digital ticketing machines, and training will take place in about 2 weeks' time. And thank you, that's all from me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions for David, Dave? Yeah, go for it, John.
Look, the Freedom Camping Ranger being attacked, that's just, we just, whatever it takes to stop those situations arising. I think there's been a few comments regarding us having a security guard in our travels around. Well, this validates those sort of decisions. So, look, we've got to make sure that doesn't happen again. My comment, and I won't drag it out too long, is around the forestry. And the only reason I'm going to bring this up is because you're going to read something in the paper in the very near future about this. I've had a couple of meetings over the last month with a concerned group of locals in West Otago. I've had ORC and our local MP there, and I've been communicating a lot with Olivia over this. And just give you a quick, my understanding of the quick, brief way the thing works, and the anomaly, the glaring anomaly that these people are going to bring up to the media in New Zealand very, very shortly. So a company or an individual buys a forestry property. If they meet certain criteria, it's just a notifiable activity for both ORC and CDC. One of those criteria is they fill out what's called a wilding tree calculator. Now, as long as their number is below 12, it carries on as being a notifiable activity. In the last 4 years, according to ORC staff, and I'm presuming I haven't asked Olivia this one, but given we get the same information, no one's ever had a calculator above 12. Why, I hear you ask? Because the person doing the calculator only has to be, and this calculator is one sheet of paper with 5 questions on it that are weighted. So one, like 0 to 5 in each one, so the top being 25 you can get. The person doing that calculator only has to have a tertiary education and some forestry tertiary education and experience for 5 years, I think, and they can fill it out. So it doesn't have to be an independent person. So a forestry company would have numerous employees that could fill out the wilding calculator and put it in. And in the last 4 years, not one of them's been over 12. So these people, and this is not an indictment on us or staff. This is the rules that we have to work in. The people the other day with the ORC staff are kind of pushing them on, this is not right, but they're saying there's no discretion for staff. They have to work within the box they've got. But you're going to see this, these people are really pushing this issue that this is not right. This is like marking your own exam. And so there's a large group, the media were there on Tuesday, and I think you're going to see some stuff probably kicking around in the paper in the very near future. And this is what it's about. They're really questioning the validity over this Wilding Tree calculator and why a company can fill their own calculating sheet in and give it to the council. And if it's under 12, we don't question it, because if it's over 12, it triggers the whole resource consent process, which is a whole other chain of events. That's my understanding of it.
Very fortunate. Right, further questions, team? Adina, could you please pass on, firstly, well, it is Ian actually, but the Ranger team, but Ian, we've been working in, as you see in the report, quite a bit. And I've never seen this district so desperate for accommodation. There was 9 people sleeping in cars that I know of a week ago. Everywhere we're going is chock-a-block full. And I thought Ian not only showed compassion and social awareness, but he went out of his way to, he did magnificently. And the outcome of that was that a couple of vulnerable people, because the whole system worked in unison, he started his job yesterday, which is life-changing after 3 months of living in a car. So please pass on the appreciation we have. And I know, I also bumped into the same person as John, as Ian did. They're out there. That's all there is to it. So anything we could do to, I don't know whether it's cameras or whatever you're thinking, but we'd have to support, because we expect them to be out in the what-whats on their own, confronting people, and the recipe's there. So firstly, my huge appreciation. Secondly, support's needed. So kia ora for that. Anything else? Thank you, Dita. Nothing? Righto. We've got a recommendation there. Someone prepared to move? Move, Councillor Waiwela, seconded Councillor Herbert. All those in favour? Those against? Does that bring it? No, it doesn't bring it to a close. Thank you, Adina. I note that you still have one more meeting before you're dismissed, so we'll bid our farewells then, but thank you for waiting patiently today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, creative communities. So it's a pretty straightforward one. Just take it as read, are we? Yeah. We'll let her off light today. Any rigorous questioning for Boo, please? Anyone? If not, recommendation. Move Councillor Waiwela, second Councillor someone, Ludeman. That's right. So all those in favour? Those against? That brings the meeting to a close. What do we want to do, team? I've got those 2 or 1 and a bit items, public excluded. Do you want to do it now, or do you want to have smoke?